intranet that runs on SharePoint also, and we also use it for our client extranets. So we have about 30,000 client sites running on it as well. And the one little stat I want to point out in the bottom left corner, 150 custom web parts. So this is just on the internet side alone. And it's not from trying to keep that number low. So this, I think, is just what happens over time when you've really got a lot of content online. But it's getting to the point now where we have to kind of reduce that number and get a little bit more efficient about the way we manage content. So what's the business challenge here? I mentioned lead generation. That's big for us. Since the day the sites were turned on and we got that first unsolicited lead, our business groups love the fact that they can get anonymous leads through the web. I mentioned about marketing services and capabilities online. So that's something they're always asking for, new ways of putting marketing content online. Can we make it dynamic? Our clients are really pushing us to personalize our extranet zones. And then everything on the right here is typically what you do within corporate sites. So recruiting, integrating social content, multimedia, all that kind of comes in to help make that experience online great. On the mobile side, what's interesting, in our industry, I think we're a little bit unique in that competition within mobile is really not coming from our pure players. Everybody has a mobile app. We market properties on mobile sites, but really there's not one big competitor of ours that's making a big entry into the mobile space. The bigger risk is coming from high-value aggregators and consumer apps that are entering into our industry. And this has been fascinating to watch. Every day we hear about another consumer app coming in, and we never recognize any of the companies that are producing them. They're very niche, they're high value, they target our market, and they usually have real strong marketing behind them because they're smaller companies and very aggressive.
Yeah, the barriers to entry in our industry, and I'm going to assume a lot of your industries, are going away. The ability to develop quickly, rapidly, and across the world, across platform, is going to affect probably everyone in this room. Yeah. And so we got to prepare for that.
Yeah. So these changes with the competition and the increase in mobile accesses, we think could have a risk of disruption in our industry, disintermediation, and you see just a couple of factors why. The two I always talk about are localized marketing. So why have an entire marketing organization focusing on pushing content down to connect with clients when a client can just turn on their phone and with one tap of a button have all the information they want around them. So this localized marketing, I think, is really going to change the way marketing works permanently. And then access and portability of content. So our clients really don't differentiate between what device they're using. They're expecting if they pick up a phone, all of your content's going to be there. If they pick up a tablet, it's there too. And it's completely tailored to the form factor of the device. From a marketing standpoint, really, really challenging for us, right? Greg threw this slide in here last minute because he knows I have like a mini panic attack every time I see it. But this is just the mobile traffic growing over time. It's pretty staggering. And I bet, the sites you're managing yourself, you're probably seeing a lot of the same things. Here's your token pie chart. I have two. This is just showing distribution of traffic coming in our sites. Pretty much what you'd expect. High Internet Explorer, multiple browsers. Second token pie chart, a little smaller. Search is pretty important for us. We don't do a lot of search engine marketing on our sites. We get about 50% organic traffic through the search engines like Google. But I think what will be interesting in the next couple of years is how does mobile play into this? And then certainly social has to be factored in too. So influencing content online. And that's something we're trying to do within SharePoint, is try to integrate as much of that social content in as possible.
So how are we going to address the business challenge that Tom kind of laid out for us? So on the technology side, we looked at, how do we get people engaged? And we started to look at public sites out there that people just like going to. People keep coming back to these sites. So we're trying to attempt to bring back some of the best concepts from the consumer space back into the business. So once again, it's the consumerization of IT. Why do people keep going back to these sites? And so we need a strategy to try to address kind of this challenge of change. Cloud and independence. We can't care about the device. We can't care about the browser. We can't care about the OS. We have to assume that it can be any of those. When people love their device, we found they actually love IT as well. So if we can get what the device that the user wants in their hands, and it can access everything they need, IT is going to be the hero. A greater focus on digital channels. So you'll see in the demo, it's not just the desktop channel anymore. It's desktop, it's tablet, it's mobile. It's a small form factor. Mobile is a game changer for us. I think we kind of laid out that case. Productivity apps geared to the individual. So I think what you've seen with Apple as far as the App Store, where you're going to hear this week from Microsoft about their App Store, it's about the personalized app. It's not about the big strategic systems like an SAP or an Oracle or a PeopleSoft. It's about the app in the hand. People want to approve their expense report. They want to book a plane. It's about the app. We need to become a data-driven organization. So analytics is going to play a key part in making real-time decisions, not gut decisions. We tend to be a gut decision organization. We actually have to use analytics going forward. Using social collaboration to drive expertise. I think what you saw this morning with Yammer as well as with the Microsoft social tools, that's going to become more prevalent inside your company as well as how you connect outside. And then search is going to drive sharing. I use the example of when you're at home and your washer breaks, what's the first thing you do? You Google it, you watch a YouTube video, and you fix the washer yourself. That's what people expect in the office now. So we have to think differently. It's no longer one size fits all. I would say over the last 5 years, we focused on the 10% of people that enter data and forgot about the 90% that consume. We need to flip that. We have to move from a brand-focused website to become more transactional. So not just generating leads off our website, but maybe even doing deals on the website. We have to think globally, but act locally. So it can't be a centralized function in Chicago trying to tell the rest of the world how they need to run their business. We need to give them the tools so that they can locally act. Speed and performance are not just nice, they're critical. So I think what we saw hooking into Amsterdam, if we can get to the cloud, and the cloud can deliver our performance, we'll be in a much better position than today where, unfortunately, everything goes out of Chicago. And then we want to know our visitors. So we're going to put tools in place so that even if you're anonymous, we're going to know what you're looking for, what to recommend. In many cases, it's the Amazon model. And so what did we see for SharePoint, and what was the kind of the promise of SharePoint? So when we got involved in the TAP program, February, I believe? These were kind of the bullets we put up on the board that we wanted to see out of 2013. Full integration of search, true mobile channel support, a product catalog and term store, so the ability to use a catalog as opposed to individual web pages, real audience segmentation, the ability to shape our content locally, improve support for large central lists. We have some lists that number in the 20,000 to 200,000. That definitely impacted performance. Better language support. And then at the time, it was stronger social support, we hope. So that's what we wanted them to deliver. And so throughout the years, we kind of did a comparison chart of kind of our three main buckets: search, mobile, and user segmentation. So between 2007 and 2013, we've seen some progression. I think looking back on the 2007 to 2010, probably not as big of an upgrade as was touted 2 years ago. But we see 2013 actually being a very major upgrade. So now I'll turn it over to Tom to do a demo.
So what was the business opportunity here? I think we started off with that as we got into working with 2013. One of the things that was kind of going on and is a focus for us this year is on the business side is we've been trying to expand into cities. As Greg mentioned, this whole global local. We're a global organization. We offer services everywhere, but we deliver them locally. So it makes sense to be able to have a web presence at that city and the market level. In the past, we haven't really focused on it because we could barely keep up with managing our country level sites that we had out there. So we wanted to find a way where we could build out that web presence at the market level, but do it in a way that maximized the investment that we have made with content in the past. A good portion of our content powering our corporate sites now sits in central lists. Greg mentioned the size. He's always calling me up and says, we've eclipsed 100,000 records, we got to do something. But that's an investment we made a long time ago. Central lists, a lot of content pushing around, a lot of metadata sitting on top of that. So we wanted to be able to capitalize on that and use a lot of content automation to drive this market site. The second thing is, as Greg mentioned, building out our mobile footprint. Back to that 188%, it's critical that we do it. And really, when we say true mobile support, I'm talking about cross-device support. And the option really was either we mobilize a SharePoint environment or we do something totally separate outside of that, like HTML5 sitting totally outside, separate development track. But we felt that would be really limiting for us. So, and back to building out the footprint, we have so many sites now and so much traffic going to them. If we could mobilize that whole platform, we'd have probably the biggest mobile footprint in our industry because it's global, it's multilingual, and so on. The third goal from a business standpoint was personalized content and content shaping. One of the things you hear about in 2013 is this new audience segmentation tool, which as a marketer, really excited about it because there's only so much that you can do with static content on the page. We happen to be in an industry, we don't sell sports cars, so it's hard. We're marketing space, complex real estate needs. So we had to get to the point within the sites to where we can really know who our site visitors coming through, shape content to them, kind of personalize that to what their needs are, and be able to scale that across the whole world. So I'll talk a little bit about how we've done that within this market site. And then the last point is the technical considerations. So all these web parts that we have sitting out there, there's hundreds. They're really not, we really can't go much further with them. So what we tried to do with the 2013 was to reduce all those down to a handful of web parts, content by search parts actually, that could be wired up to different things. And I actually see this is something we'll probably push out to some of the marketing teams because we have both big and small countries. So we have some groups that are actually very digital savvy and they want more flexibility. So these kind of generic content by search parts have been working pretty well within 2013. We also found it was fairly easy to hook in the audience segmentation into those.
So we went from over 150 custom web parts, and what we're going to show you right now, 3. Yeah. 3 custom web parts.
So this is the Chicago market site. This is running on 2013. I'll take you through most of the pages, kind of talk about what you're seeing here. With the design, the overall branding, we used an outside agency to do that work. Very easy. So one of the things we've been talking kind of in the corridors was, is the design process and the branding a lot easier? Because that was something we had heard was coming. I think that actually is the case. And certainly on the mobile side, we were able to create the mobile version of this pretty easily. Very clean design. At the local level, most of the content is geared towards kind of local campaigns. So they run a lot of different kinds of promos, they do some events. So it made sense to have this large kind of marquee scroller happening here. I personally hate these things because they're a nightmare to try to manage. Usually you end up with hundreds of custom images with all this language on it, and it's Flash or it's jQuery or someone's loading in a script. So I said, okay, if we're going to do this, we need some content automation here. These 5 stories that are rotating through, all this content is coming from the product catalog. It's entered on the back end through the catalog, brought in through I think it's a search part.
So the catalog's being indexed, and then search is going out, creating the index, and then the web part is going into the search index to pull it out.
But what I love about this is something we can scale. So we could pick this site up with this marquee. We could drop it in Shanghai. We could run Chinese through it. We could have it running in Sydney. We could really drop it anywhere, and it's scalable because that's ultimately where this is headed. My biggest fear with turning the Chicago site on is that in 6 months we'll have 100 more. So everything we do within it, we have to be able to scale it out across the organization.
So we've identified today, I believe, 300 markets where we want to put this site. And to build those out individually, it would probably take us 3 years. We think we can probably do it in about 3 months.
Yeah. So everything else you're seeing here is coming through mostly content by search parts. We produce a lot of research at the local level, so that's being brought in here. The current research, success stories, so we'll take a look at a couple of the case studies. And then we wanted to experiment with some of these new flyout menus, which you're seeing everywhere now. CNN Money, I mean, everybody's got them. And for us, it made sense to try to use those for marketing services. The other goal here was to give site visitors very quick access to our service content. So they come in, they either know what they're looking for, or they come in and they are a type of client. And this is where the audiencing comes into play. So we took all of our services, which in the past were this big, long list of laundry list of services, and we sat down with our marketers and we came up with some segments around them. So we said clients are either site visitors coming through, they're either corporate clients looking for services, they're investor clients, they're developers, they're small businesses, or they come in, they're part of an industry, so healthcare, retail, hotels, or law firm. This menu control is actually pulling all of these services from the term store. So we took those segments, those parent-child relationships, we loaded them in the term store, and we brought them into this control. Another scalability victory there, because when I suggested we try to do this, I wasn't really thinking about, well, what happens if the Sydney office doesn't deliver, they don't offer all these services. They're going to need to be able to customize this. How are we going to deal with the 26 languages here? So because all this is coming from the term store, we'll be able to support phrase translation and things like that. So what happens is, as you come in, and let's just take agency leasing. This is one of the services on the investor side. You'll see that this loads up. It should load up.
So one improvement of SharePoint 2013 is the nice messages you get. So as opposed to some, error 500, you get a sorry, something went wrong.
What's it doing?
There we go.
There it comes. So this is the technical glitch. We planned this And
So it's real.
yeah. So one of the things, the way the audiencing works is once you get all that in the term store, you have to trigger that some way. So what we decided was off of that home page, or if someone goes into the main services page, the first service they click on will identify what client type they're in. And then SharePoint keeps track of that across that whole session. And what happens is as you start to get into the service pages, that then interacts with the content by search parts to start boosting content as you're seeing it. And while he's doing that, I'm going to switch over and let's show you the. Okay, I mentioned mobile. Let's just go through this now. So one of the things we wanted to do with this was true mobile support. So we built inside 2013, it has channel support. And the way that works is you sit down and you define the number of channels that you want to support. And we said, okay, we'll do, for this project, we'll do desktop and smartphone. And then within those channels, you can then make all the decision about what content will display within that channel and how it renders on the screen. So what you're seeing is the same version of that Chicago site, but this is all mobile. So this is actually HTML5 as a presentation layer with all the content being pulled in by content by search parts. I think one thing Microsoft did, which was very nice for us, was they're not locking you into one way of handling the presentations. If you want to use HTML5, you want to use jQuery, you want to use some other kind of framework, you can go ahead and do that, and they're giving you the connections into it. So you get our nice little scroller here. And as you scroll down the screen, we said, okay, after that, those featured stories, let's push some recent news to them. As you scroll down, we'll load in some market statistics. We do a lot of research down at the local level. And then from here, we offer a nice little drop-down menu. So let's go into the services section. And so here you'll see the mobile version of that, those client types and those services again. Needs a second to load. Okay, here you go. So corporate clients, all the services, small businesses. Let's go in and select agency leasing. So we could use the audience segmentation here too, which is, if you think about it, is probably even more valuable because with such a small form factor, you're really going to need to kind of shape content back to the site visitor. In this case, what we did was we just took kind of a subset of the service content that normally would appear within the desktop version and displayed that on the screen. We're on a wireless here too.
Yeah.
Here it comes. Use some background music. Okay, here you go. Agency leasing. So one of the things we decided to do on the mobile site is we just kind of compressed all that content on one page. So I'll go back on the desktop and kind of show you. We have the service content, everything we do for agency leasing. You click off here as a call to action, get contacts. We've got case studies down below. This collapses that all into really one page. So you get access to these success stories. And then we're just loading in all of the local contacts, so that team for agency leasing right on the page. And I could click over into case studies if I wanted to. So how does this work? The Chrome of the page and the navigation at the top is being managed by the master page. So when we switch from desktop to the phone, we are just switching the navigation. We go from that big flyout menu and big bar to this drop-down menu. So you can decide where you want to put that. So we're putting that in the master page. And then once you get into rendering the page out, everything else is managed by the page layout itself. And you can decide, do you want web parts, zones to display or turn off? The web parts themselves are also channel aware, so you can, depending on the channel, change the way that they render. So is it a bullet list? Is it 2x2? You have the ability to control all of that. Let's jump over. I mentioned about people and promoting people. So on the phone, searching for local contacts is pretty important. So people, I'm at a lunch, I meet someone, his name's Joe, I know he works in agency leasing, I want to be able to quickly get on and look up and find him. So we have a simple people finder here. It's also search-based too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the Contact Us section, people search, and then you can tab over and get a list of our offices we have in Chicago. There's some links for maps and things like that. Oh, this really slowed down, huh? Well,
It's its own.
oh, here it goes. Okay. So let's do a quick search. We'll do Smith. Whoops. Pretty simple. It's going to come back with, I think there's maybe one or two guys, Smith. So here I can email them, call them on the phone. All of our contacts also sit inside the product catalog. I think we have 5,000, 6,000 brokers on there. It's also multilingual, so very easy to integrate that in. Couldn't find a Smith. Anyway. Here I'll just tab over to the offices so you can see. So this is pretty much feels like a mobile site to you, but it's all running off of SharePoint. So the ability of picking this up, and because all of that content, or most of that content, is coming into these pages through the product catalog, we could pick this up, we think, and put it across the entire organization. So what we've done here at the Chicago level, we can bring that up to the US level, and then we can scale it out. And that's kind of the channel support. I think out of all the features within 2013, I'm the most excited about the mobile channel support, because we just are to the point where we have to do something with it.
Yep. You want to switch it back?
Yeah, let's see.
Just real quick. See if we can get this site up.
Any questions so far? I know we've been kind of going through quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
That's correct. So what you do with the device channels is you set up whatever page template you want for whatever form factor you want, for whatever devices you want to come in. And the content is just then delivered into that template. Yeah.
Did it go down?
Yeah, it's going.
Okay. that's, I guess, the desktop. Let's go back to.
We're done.
Yeah. So let's just review the. I know I went through the audience segmentation pretty quick. Let's just go through it real fast. So what we did was we took all of our services and we organized them into segments. We then identified content areas within the site that would be a good target for content shaping. Things like research, news, context, case studies. Then we wired up those web parts and kind of played with how they're rendered. And the other thing we want to do is also capture that user behavior and use it again and again. So once we kind of move someone into one of these client types, we store that in a cookie, and that actually persists across sessions. So the next thing that happens is when the person comes through again, we knew that they were looking at investor services, so that home page scroller, subtly, those 5 stories, the first story you get may be about investor services or agency leasing. So things like that. You can subtly kind of shape the content, and what you're really doing is personalizing it to what they're interested in. And we have some plans to...
And you're doing that without requiring registration, because we found that as soon as you ask someone to register, they leave your site. And we're actually not trying to drive people away. We actually want people to stay engaged. So the ability to personalize without having to register is critical.
And I mentioned I kind of walked through mobility. So the first thing you do is you define your channels. We said desktop, smartphone. You could probably do tablet, maybe mini tablet. I was walking past the little 7-inch tablets, and I said, "Oh my God, what am I going to do? It's killing me over here." You then make some decisions about how you're going to use the master pages, page layouts, and web parts, and then you make a decision around how you're going to handle all the presentation layer. I think the other thing too is we on the marketing side, we always use agencies to help with the design work. So this worked out very well. We had one group doing all the design comp work on the mobile side, doing all the page layouts. We handed that off to our development team, and it went surprisingly smooth. Much, much smoother than any other mobile project I'd been involved in the past year internally. And that was it.
So fortunately, we did have some backup slides, because we actually got an email this morning about 9 saying there was no internet access in these conference breakouts. So we did actually bring some backup slides. We didn't realize it was going to be our fault. So content by search. So as I was saying earlier, we have over 100 custom web parts running on our public websites. That's not sustainable, especially as we try to go to the market area. We could see that doubling to 200, 300 custom web parts. And if we ever want to do another upgrade, if we ever want to actually move to Office 365 without many custom web parts, we'd never get there. It's just not sustainable. So the content by search web part, it could be wired up easily to different types of content. I think even the little glimpse you saw, all the content on that page was a different content by search web part that just brings the content in. And then the integration with the audience is very powerful. So it boosts search results. It can support complex rules and also become our recommendation engine. And the mobile experience would receive exactly the same boosting, the same content by search parts. So very seamless for the user to be on a train, on a mobile device, then come into the office, you're on a desktop. It's the same user experience that they get used to.
We also talked about, well, maybe just one click shouldn't move you into a segment. Maybe it's a series of clicks across pages that really puts you into one of those types. I think world of possibilities around how you define those. And then how does that differ with the mobile phone?
And so, we've talked about device channels. So this is more of a backup slide for those that actually didn't attend the presentation. They can see this online as well. But that was critical for the mobile devices.
And I'll mention,
Yeah,
mention one thing here. This little snapshot you see with the tabs, this is a snapshot of what the page looks like in SharePoint when you edit it by a content author. One of my big concerns with this channel support was, if we roll out mobile sites across the organization and we do desktop, tablet, phone, are we going to triple the amount of content that the marketers will need to manage from an authoring standpoint? There'd be revolts in the street. They would kill me. They would say, we'll never want to do it. We don't care.
And we couldn't go to our COO and say we need to build 3 public websites.
Yeah. So one of the things we did with the channel support is when you go to edit a page, we integrated this concept of tabs. So when you edit the page and open it up for the first time, you get the desktop versions. You get all the web parts zones. You get all the web parts there. In the case of a service page, it's a long list of all the things that we do. And then you can tab over to the smartphone tab. And what that does, it has a different set of web parts there. And in that case, for a service page, what we want the marketers to do is go from 4 paragraphs down to 2. They drop that into that little tab, save the page, publish it, and they're finished. Then the channel support automatically knows when it goes to grab that page, it pulls the content that was entered within the smartphone tab. So we think that's, with a little bit of training, and most of our marketers are not mobile savvy yet, but with a little bit of training, kind of as an extension to what we show them to do with content authoring, they can now handle the mobile piece of it. And all they need to do is think about, from a marketing standpoint, how does that content change? So go from a long, multiple paragraphs down to something very concise. Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about the analytics that you're collecting from the mobile platform and SharePoint manages that for you?
Yeah, we haven't got into that yet, but what we're planning on doing is integrating Omniture in. So we've been a big Google Analytics user over the past couple of years. We've kind of we're getting a little bit too big for that, so we're going to be integrating Omniture in to capture all the metrics. I think one of the things we were talking with in the TAP was really to do this real well is we got to somehow either be able to bring that back in from Omniture, or Microsoft comes up with a real robust metrics tool that we can bake into SharePoint. Because I think one of the interesting things on the segmentation side would be, after people come in repeatedly, we're going to want to look at what content they're interested in. It'd be great to kind of close the loop, bring that back in, and then use it to enhance the experience even more. That's a good question, and I think the 2 things we didn't get into was, how do we track metrics and get this to where it's really streaming? And the second thing was, we're not doing a whole lot with language variations here, but obviously we need to get into that.
Yeah, and while this is a SharePoint conference, I think one thing we would like to highlight is we know we can't do it all in SharePoint. If you look at our property listing site, which is actually live today in 30-plus countries, that's not SharePoint. It may look like it. It's attached into the rest of our public website platform. We built that in .NET. We're using Omniture. We're using HTML5. We're building iOS apps. It's not the one-size-fits-all anymore. And I think that's important to note to everybody in the room. If you think SharePoint is going to be your silver bullet, it's not going to be your silver bullet. The ribbon on the mobile? No. I think we actually stripped it out because we wanted to have a very clean, because the ribbon will tend to actually muddy the water on the mobile view. There's too much there. No, we actually just stripped it out. Yes, please.
You mentioned on some of your slides that quite a number of registered users.
Yes.
What are the authenticating mechanisms here? Obviously, something like that directory,
Actually, we're just using a SQL database. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. We use that primarily for research. A lot of the research we produce, some of it's, they take a long time to create these publications, so we have kind of several layers of that.
Yeah, it used to be, our research used to be a pay-for model, and then we went to the free model, but we still want to be able to track the users. Yeah.
You mentioned content shaping, and you looked into shaping your content according to the geographic location of the request.
No, but you certainly could. Yeah. Yep, you certainly could. So I think we didn't do it here because this was about as local as we get. But yeah, you certainly could. So I think one of the things we'll look at when we move all our, the country sites to 2013 is, so it's a U.S. site of maybe we use the shaping that way. So it is a little more geographic. I think that's where it's all headed. We kind of ran out of time. And I'm interested too, so of the groups that are, have kind of played with it, we've really just focused on kind of boosting results within the content search parts as a start.
And we are doing that on our property listings on the mobile app, taking advantage of the geolocation. Because there's no point giving results back if you're in Paris for London.
Yeah.
You already know where they're at. Give them the properties where they're located.
How are you doing that? Using a third-party service? Is this something you built yourself?
For the geolocation?
Yes.
It's a third-party service. It's Phone Gap, I believe.
I think we're just going right to the device. So that actually the mobile version of the property site, Greg had mentioned, is .NET. So that actually doesn't run through SharePoint. So I think they're going right to the device, figuring out where it's at. So okay, you're in Montreal. You want to show properties here, and then they go. Yeah. But a good question would be, if you try to do it within SharePoint, how would you? You'd have to use something. Absolutely. Yeah.
There's an internet license you can purchase. So there's a standard, I think, our CAL, and then there's also an enterprise internet version. It's not cheap. Yeah. How large? It's probably not very large right now because this is the one. This is the only site we have running today. We could see it probably. What is our language store?
I don't know.
4,000 or 5,000. This could easily get in the tens of thousands. It's a potential. We're not doing any language translation today in 2013. That once again in 2010 we did that outside of SharePoint. It's a SQL database once again, where we're doing the translations on the fly there. Yeah. One example is locations, our people. So if I look in the U.S., every employee is actually going to be listed on the site. So that's one example. What else is a centralized list?
Research, all the press releases, all the case studies, all the research publications back in time, and they refused to let any go. I said, 1998, do we really need to have these reports? Yes, they go back and compare statistics. Okay, fine. What else? Yeah, contacts. You were mentioning the translations. We have some translation tables that are pretty big we use to look up local phrases.
Yeah.
Potentially, yeah. I think it'll be. I think what's going to happen is how do we mobilize some of that content in the. So for the upside of this, all of the content we're displaying on the phone is really ready for mobile consumption. So the contacts, it's just a couple of fields and a headshot. The research reports, it's a thumbnail image of the cover and a short paragraph of text. But I think what you're saying is right, is when you're getting into page content, what do you do? So I think we're going to end up with kind of a hybrid approach of, yeah, if you got a page sitting out there and it's real long, you're going to have to create some mobile content to feed the site. If it's something sitting inside the catalog that's big, well, yeah, we'll probably have to add some columns there, and they'll have to just enter that in. Yeah.
So we are mainly an English-speaking company, and so most of the marketers will be able to translate from English into whatever their local language is. So that's, in many ways, being done by the marketers on the ground. In some cases, I believe they'll go out to a third-party service, but that's all determined locally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we have 26 of them.
Yeah, there's. The local level.
Yeah.
The intent is we use dynamic CRM. So the intent is once we start hooking up Omniture, is to start feeding some of that data back into CRM, especially for the lead generation pieces. So to be able to take what we would call a warm lead and hand that off to somebody that's in the CRM system so they can turn that into a hot lead. It could be better. Yes. Yeah.
The language, I think it's quite a lot of work for our marketing teams. A lot of times they'll have it's a Swedish site, and that's the local language, but they load up a lot of English content because as a global firm, we attract a lot of international clients. But they in some cases, it's mirrored. So like in Canada, it's in French, Canadian, and it's in English, and it has to be. In some countries, they'll have a very, very small subset, just enough English content to kind of describe what we do. And I think they would love if we could come up with a way of using variations or something like that. I think a few of the TAP clients have really gotten into that. So we didn't get a chance to get into it, but I'd love to see. So I think that would help them tremendously if we could use some machine translation, even if it wasn't perfect, but to get them maybe 70% of the way.
Yeah, because we got burned on variations in 2007. We got burned bad. So we're going to go very gently into trying variations on this version. Yeah. For right now, the authoring's all done on the desktop. No intent in the short term to author through the mobile device, but I'm going to guess as soon as they start seeing this, they're going to want to do that.
For contacts? Yeah, so that's interesting. Our marketing teams are kind of the gatekeepers to that. So part of the problem we have is sometimes titles aren't the right thing. So everything that's across the public sites, our marketers act as gatekeepers, but that's kind of grown over time. And eventually, I think we'd love to get it integrated into our My Connect feature. Like what is it?
We want to use the profile. So today we have an internal profile, and going forward we'd like to use an external profile and then feed that external profile into this list, and then Active Directory would take hold. Today, if somebody leaves and marketing's not notified, they're going to be out on this site. It's a manual process. Yeah. A few different ways. One is we're using Akamai on the outside to accelerate, Riverbed on the inside. Yeah, go ahead. And we use, we have a wide area network, and then we also have internet connected sites, and then we've bought a lot of hardware to place in our data center. It's an AT&T facility in LaSalle, Illinois, which is just outside of Chicago. If Microsoft was ever able to distribute the content across their data centers, that would be the best thing we could hope for. Because today, I think it's one instance, it's one location you pick, and so since we're a global company, well, do you pick Chicago? Do you pick Singapore? Do you pick Australia? Do you pick London? Well, then the other 2/3 are not going to have as good a performance as wherever it's located. But if they ever get with Azure the ability then to distribute the content, centralized platform where the content's distributed, that would be our best hope.
Let me see if I could show you a couple of those. So this was that agency leasing page we saw on the mobile side. Here's what it looks like on the desktop. Fairly similar where we're pulling in case studies here. One of the things, just by selecting agency leasing, if I go over to the news section, here's an example of where you're seeing the audiencing working now. So normally you'd get a nice boring list of news releases in descending order by date.
Yeah, based on most recent.
News release. Yeah, but since we know that this person's looking at is an investor type of client and they're interested in agency leasing as a service, or at least they looked at it, where the content by search parts we're boosting the relevant news releases to the very top. So these two up that are displayed first. This one has to do with about landlord conditions related to agency leasing. And this one, so it would start off with the most, if there's a match for the service they looked at, it would display that first. If not, it would fall back to the client type. So then you'd see any type of investor news release. And this was fairly easy to do. The developers told me it took about this much code on top of the content search part to get this to render. But very simple. And we could do this everywhere. So if this was a list of research, we could boost the content there. I think one of the things I'm interested in playing around with is the recommendation engine inside 2013. So we could do kind of feed it the type of client information we have and see what comes back. Let's click around here a little bit. So here's the leadership page. Again, this content, real simple. These are all the business leaders for Chicago, so they can get contacted pretty easily. Here's that research page. So here's what it looks like on the desktop. Let's see if we can get it to render on the phone. So back to that question about your question about would this come from the catalog or not. So in this case, it was pretty easy because the research information was just a title and a short paragraph. See if I can go into one here. I'm trying to get tricky.
Well, I think you got Twitter and YouTube and...
Yeah. All right, let's go back. Flip back over to that if it comes up. And then the last thing is just success stories here. So these are all our case studies, and these sit inside the product catalog too. One thing that is important with the audiencing is you need something to match it up to. So one of the things we did when we set up all these central lists is we trained the marketers, so every time they enter a press release, we have them tag which services it belongs to. Every time they have a case study, they tag it to the services. And so that metadata gave us a real easy way that we could go into the catalog and extract that out. I think without that, you gotta have some way of connecting it back. So we've been able to kind of capitalize on that metadata. I would say though, the marketers have told me, no more metadata. We're not doing any more tagging for you. That's about it. So I think all the rest of it has to come through the magic of search, right? And that's just how it is for us. Where our marketers are stretched real thin, and that's not really going to change anytime soon. So you see here, this list of case studies. These come from the product catalog. Here's that.
8.
So here's that research list. You can see it's pretty basic. You can tap into one of these. And all it's going to do is show you an article. It's going to show you a title, the cover image. It's going to give you a short abstract for the research report. Then it gives you the option to download it. So it's pretty balanced, I think, between and across.
How do you get back?
So we got the demo in, more or less.
How do you switch this?
I'm sorry, couldn't hear you. No, I think that someone asked, like, we haven't yet. I think what we'd want to do first is get all these sites kind of migrated over and get everyone comfortable on managing the mobile content on the desktop, and then looking at some ways of doing it on the device, maybe on the tablet. Or I think one of the challenges there is we support a lot of devices, so have to be quite a mix of different things to support.
So to kind of wrap up. Actually didn't go in the order we anticipated, but I think we actually covered everything we wanted to. So this will be the last presentation trick where we provide the lessons learned as well as our Ask a Microsoft using these big fancy words. But yeah, we want our SharePoint sites to be completely mobile friendly. I said this to my team, I believe 5 years ago, that I wanted to do configuration, not customization. We didn't do that very well. I want to get back to that. We need to do configuration. We cannot customize. We can't afford it. From both a time of delivery perspective and pure dollars. Search is going to be able to help us drive the transition from becoming push marketers to pull marketers. So that we become more intimate with the people using our sites. We understand what they're looking for. We're able to make recommendations. We become a smarter company that way. I think we've driven home the point on audience segmentation. We need to use metrics and user behavior tracking to understand, one, where we're going to invest in new features in the future. So there will be some customization. Today we're kind of going, well, I think we need to use this feature. If we can actually use metrics to help tell us what we should invest in, we'll be a smarter company that way as well. We've got to figure out how to bake social into our public website. I think we're starting to see on the search engines, they're not using just the regular content on a public website page anymore coming to the top of the list. It ends up being the social network comments that go right to the top. So folks like Google, Bing, they're using social commentary as opposed to public website propaganda to drive search results. We've got to figure out how to capitalize on that. And then finally, we got to capitalize on Microsoft technologies, but we also have to capitalize on emerging technologies that are not Microsoft. It goes back to it's not one size fits all. Microsoft technologies have to play nicely with other leading technologies. If they do not, we may not all be here the next release. We may be at some other conference, some other place, with some other company that doesn't even exist yet.
But getting back to that first slide when we sat down with the Microsoft team, and all these marketing goals, and I think I've been impressed with how far 2013's really come. I think from a marketer's point of view, it's always this fluffy, kind of shiny stuff, and talk about the users, and I think the ability to kind of shape content in that mobile experience is really gonna be a great thing.
So before we wrap up, you've heard from the two talking heads. I'd actually like my team to stand up. These are the people that actually did the work. Any more questions? Sir.
How much of that was configuration versus customization?
I'm going to write that down. No server-side code anywhere. So I always write down the big IT words so I can spit them out obnoxiously later on.
Any other questions? You guys are easy.
I have a question. Just a show of hands, how many are you marketers by trade or IT professionals by trade? We'll do the marketers first. Just a few. Okay. IT. There we go. Okay.
The IT folks, you need to pair up with your marketers because they're the ones that are actually going to get the dollars.
And we have the strategy. Yeah. Anything else? Question?
We let you out early.
Well, this is great. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.